and welcome to this week's One Image My Edit. So this week we are going to be looking at how we can warm up skin tones and an image when you're shooting using natural daylight. So last week I covered it within a studio, how you can warm up skin tones and how you can just bring a little bit more three-dimensional look to your shots. So you can go back and have a look at that. But like I said, this week we're going to be concentrating on doing a similar process. It's similar but not exact, similar process, but it is for mainly for daylight, and when you get this lovely warm kind of light coming across. And you can see here on the original it's quite cold. There's a lot of blue in there within the skin tones, and then here what I've done is warmed that up and just introduced more yellow into the skin tones. And this is a very popular look. You'll see this in Vogue, you'll see this in Tatler magazine. It gives a really nice sheer finish to an image, and it gives it a very summery vibe look. Okay, so I'm going to reset this then and walk you through the steps. As always, it is quite a simple process. You don't have to worry too much about any of the technical adjustments because I will talk you through them as I do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just bring the contrast down because we're aiming to have a little bit of a flatter image. We don't want it to be too contrasty. So because of that, we're going to be bringing down the highlights, because obviously with natural light, with sunlight, you can see here we've got quite big highlights, which is done on purpose, but we just want to bring that down so it's not as powerful. So about -20, -21 for this particular image. That works well. So then obviously we don't want this contrast, so to counteract that, then what we need to do is just lift the shadow details. I'm going to push this up to around 30, 31. So what that does is obviously it just it mutes the highlights, and then it just brings detail back out within them dark areas. So following that kind of continuation, then with the whites, I'm going to bring them down quite a bit, so I'd say around -30, 32, around there. So again, we're suppressing them highlights, and then the blacks, let's bring them up a little bit, maybe around +10, +12, probably about 11 actually. I think that would work a little bit better. And it's amazing the difference between just these few little points. It does make a big difference when you compound the effect of everything else. So always go back and just tweak the numbers on there. So that's looking quite good. If I just press the Y key for the before and after, you can see what we've done there. So we've already flattened the image. You can see the original has quite a lot of contrast, so I've now flattened that, which is better for skin tones. Okay, so let's bring the vibrance down and let's bring the saturation up. So let's bring the vibrance down just a little bit, about -10. So again, we're muting everything, but then we're going to bring up that saturation because we don't want the colors to be affected. So in essence, we're bringing the vibrance down, and you can see the difference with the vibrance. You can see that if you push that up, you start boosting up the colors. And the saturation is, if you pull that out, then eventually you're going to start going into the black and white spectrum there. And if you push it all the way up, you start boosting up them colors. So we're just kind of counterbalancing each, just to get this lovely kind of matte effect, I suppose. It's a matte effect. I think that's probably the best way to describe that reason. So coming into the tone curve then, they're fairly simple. So again, as always, if you've been watching the tutorials, we make the 3 points of the white, the greys and the blacks. Okay, and I'm just going to lift these greys up. So we're doing that because we want to lift up these dark areas. I'm going to bring these whites up here just down just a smidge, and I'm going to leave the blacks there. The reason why I'm not doing anything with the blacks is, from what I've just explained, we're trying to lighten the image. We don't want to start messing with them, but I'm not moving that. But the reason why I add that point is because that means that the greys are then isolated, so I can move the greys and it's not going to affect the blacks, and it's not going to affect the whites. So that's why we have to put these points as well as the middle section, because if it's just the middle section and we move it up, we'll actually be affecting the blacks and the whites. Okay, so that's the reason behind that. So let's go into the HSL, so the hue, saturation and luminance. We'll start with the hues. Let's bring the reds down because you can see there's quite a bit of red in the skin tones there. So just bring that down just a little bit. I'd say about -10. That works pretty well. Same with the orange. Let's just bring the orange down. Yeah, I'd say about -10 again. And the yellow, let's actually boost that up. Let's go more towards the 20, 21, around there. So in essence, what we're doing there is just we're changing the colors. You can see there, there's a lot of red in the skin. I'm pushing it more towards the red and the orange more towards the red, and then bringing up this yellow. And what that does, if I just press the before and after, you can see instantly what it's doing to the skin tones there. Okay, so it's just warming them up. But we're also going to be doing stuff with the saturation and luminance as well. Okay, so really it's just them three because they're the primary colors within the skin tone. So it's just giving you a little bit more of an orange look. So let's go to the saturation, and let's boost that saturation red up to around 10. And then with the yellow, let's just start bringing that down a little bit to around -20, so it's not too in your face. As you can see there, it's a counter adjustment. All right. Let's have a look at the aqua then. I think we could, because there is a little bit of blue within them skin tones originally. Let's just bring that down to around -20, and we could probably do the same with the blue as well. Again, depending on your image, yours might not have blue within it to start with. Okay, so because of that, I'm actually going to bring the purple and the magenta down to finally get rid of the red. So let's just bring the purple down, keep going until it looks good. So yeah, about 20. And you'll find as well within Lightroom, when you make these adjustments, the 10 and 20 marks, they are quite significant. So do go to them as increments, as points. So the magenta, you'll see this coming into place now. Yeah, so you can see there it's only slight, but if you're looking for it, especially around the face and around the sand dunes there, if we go in a little bit closer, in fact let's go in a little bit closer up to here, you'll see that when I start bringing this down to what I want, which is -20, you can actually see it happening a little bit more. Okay, so let's just bring this back up to fit. And then let's go to the luminance. So we're thinking about the brightness now. So the orange, let's bring the orange up to around +10, I would say. That's a good starting point from there. And then let's brighten up these yellows to around 20. So what this is going to do is give us this matte effect. Okay. Let's just bring the greens down to around -40. And the reason why I'm doing that is not just because I hate greens, but because it's then enabling the yellow and the orange and the reds to come through more. Okay, so I hope that makes sense why I've done that. So the final kind of thing then is the color grading, and the color grading is usually where most of the magic happens. So it's a mixture of the tone curve, the HSL, and the color grading. That's how you're going to get these different effects and your images looking looking how you want them to look. So I'm only going to concentrate on the highlight and shadows. Don't need to do anything within the mid-tones because we've kind of just done that within that area there. So let's start with the shadows. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to add, I think, probably going to go around 50, 52, around there. So we're kind of looking in the yellow within the shadows. Usually I add blues within the shadows, but I'm doing the opposite because there is already blue within the shadows. Okay, so I'm selecting around 50, 52, I think looks quite nice. And let's just bring up the saturation, so I can click in the middle and just bring that up until this number says 15. Or you can just type it in, so you can go up in increments. Let's do it to 16 because I think that's probably a little bit better. Okay, and then let's jump into the highlights. I'll come back to that in a minute because I'm going to also play around with the blending and balance and explain why I'm doing that. So the highlights, let's have a look at this. What we're going to do there. Let's have a look at, I think around 85 there. So we're kind of going into the green tone, so it's a split. What we're getting is a line here and a line here. So within the color theory, we're just getting a complementary split there. So yeah, around 85, I think that's good. The saturation, we could probably go up to 10, so it's not as much. So I've just put in 12 there. That would be good. And let's just move this around to 84, 85. So we've got a little bit of a green in there, and that will just help cool off the highlights. Okay. So within that now, let's have a look at this blending and also the balance. So if we look at the blending, if I pull this down and push that up, so you can see what's happening there. It's, as I push that up, it's going more towards the highlights in that green, and then the blending, it's more going towards the yellow. And the balance as well, you can see that it's doing pretty much the same thing, so it's just balancing out. So what I'm going to do within the highlights, I'm going to push the balance right up, because I want it to be the yellow to be more prominent, because that was kind of the aim of the image, was to warm it up a little bit. So we're pushing that right up. So what this means is that we're having just a small section of that green added to the image, so it's not too overpowering. And then we can do the same then, help that along with the balance. Let's just bring this down to around -40. So that gives us a nice small selection of that green that's there. Okay, so we go into the shadows. With the shadows there, you can see 95 and the balance is -40. So when you make an adjustment, you can see it actually runs along all three. Okay, so it's you don't have to do it on each one, it's just from that section there. We could also, as normal, we could always do a little bit of noise reduction, because when you're playing with color, you are starting to rip colors apart. So it's always a good idea just to go up to sort of maybe +10, 15 or 20, again depending on your image, and also within the color as well, because the top one is for the overall brightness, and now we're really concentrating on the color. And what that's going to enable us to do is like I said earlier, it's just going to give us it's just going to help us with the colors, so we're not going to create any noise. So again, just a little bit, +15. You might need to go maybe a little bit higher. This could probably go a smidgen higher, so let's go to 20, and that will just help smoothen things off and help the image along. So if we now come back up to the top, and we can see kind of pretty much the process what we've done. If I press the Y key, you'll see the before and after. So now you've seen that before and after, you can probably now tell where the green is within that image and where the yellow is within that image. So if we look at the sand dunes at the back, there is a green hue to them. Can you see the difference? Okay, and the most difference is the blue tones within the skin tones and the hair. So that highlight now is actually being warmed up with that yellow, and you can see there is a big difference. Even looking on the garment there, this has a more blue hue to it. This is lighter, it's softer, and it's a little bit more elegant in my opinion. So the blue is very harsh, very cool, very it's very strong, and it does work as a look. But you'll see a lot of photographers, fashion photographers, do this kind of edit because they want that sheer look. Now you can take this a step further, and you could come down to the blacks and you could push them up. So what you're doing there is you're suppressing them blacks, and you could bring the whites down and you're suppressing the whites a little bit, and that will give you even more of a matte look finish. With this image, I don't think it needs it. It'll be debatable. I could probably do it a little bit just to help. And of course, coming back to these settings here, you can then refine these and just fine tune them to however your image needs. So, you can just play around with these and just really make the adjustments. And you could as well come up to the white balance, and you can push this either way. Now, obviously, if I go towards a blue, it's going to completely counteract everything we just done, which is quite interesting, because you see there, that kind of brings it down. But you obviously can go up a little bit. So if you wanted to warm it up, you would probably go, just +1, +2. if you wanted to. And because we added a green to this, we could go towards the tint of -1, -2, and that would help bring out that color. So if we look at that now, you'll see there's a big difference. That green has come through more, and so is that yellow. But if I then just reset them, that'll be, it's not as vibrant. Okay, so that's how you do it. It's as simple as that. It is a really, really simple, basic process, but it works really, really well when you're doing pictures with natural sunlight, and you want to get some really nice soft tones, soft effects to the skin. It can be really, really flattering, and it does automatically soften skin as well because of what we've been doing with the colors. It won't soften it like within, you know, retouching, frequency separation, that, but it just helps the skin tones look softer, and that's what gives you that smoother effect. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. Have a go with your images, have a play, see what you get, and I think once you start doing this, you'll kind of get quite addicted to this, and you won't want to go back to any other ways of editing your images, your portraits, or whatever you're doing outside, because it is a really nice soft vibe effect. And you know, like I say, a lot of Vogue, Tatler magazine, Elle magazine, you'll see this kind of finish within their looks. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.